Good morning and welcome to China Forum. I'm Corinne Milliken, and today we will be discussing the Chinese collection housed at the Library of Congress. 2008 marked the 80th anniversary of the founding of the Division of Chinese Literature at the library. Since its first acquisition of a Chinese work, the Library of Congress has maintained a leading collection of Chinese works, and today the library houses over 1 million Chinese volumes and is one of the largest collections of Chinese works outside of China. The Library of Congress received its first Chinese materials in 1869 when the Chinese Emperor Tengzhi presented the United States with 10 Chinese works in nearly 1,000 volumes. Following this generous gift, the library continued to expand its Chinese collection, and by 1912 it possessed nearly 17,000 volumes. During this period, notable additions to the collection included the acquisition of the Caleb Cushing collection, which included 237 works and took place in 1879. The Rock Hill collection of 6,000 volumes was added to the library's holdings in 1901 and 1902. In 1904, upon conclusion of the Louisiana Purchase Exposition, the Chinese government presented the United States with an additional 198 works divided over nearly 2,000 volumes. The collection continued to expand through the dedication of the library's committed staff, and by 1928, it included approximately 100,000 volumes. At this time, the United States Congress and Librarian of Congress Herbert Putnam, in recognition of the collection's size and significance, created the Division of Chinese Literature, which was to oversee the collection's development and maintenance. Arthur W. Hummel, a leading American sinologist, was selected as the division's first chief. Hummel managed the division through various name changes and expansions until his retirement in 1954. Although the division has changed names several times and expanded its purview to include other Asian nations since its original creation, it remains dedicated to acquiring Chinese materials, and today it holds over 1 million volumes. We are fortunate to be joined today by Professor Wang, who, during his career at the Library of Congress, served both as assistant head and head of the Chinese section. As we celebrate the 80th anniversary of the collection's development, can you provide some insight into the people that have played a major role, specifically division heads and section heads in the collection's development?
Yeah, the Division of Chinese Literature was founded in 1928, so 2008 will be 80th anniversary, and so it's really time for us to talk about the Chinese collection in Library of Congress. As you asked me, who are the people really participate in the developing of Chinese collection in Library of Congress? I think the first person that I must mention is that Dr. Arthur W. Hummel. He was a American missionary in China in Shanxi province for over 20 years. And he came back from China in 1927. He was a very well-known sinologist. And he came back to Boston. He has collect hundreds Chinese ancient maps, atlas, which was a very good collection. The Librarian of Congress at that time was a very well-known scholar by the name Herbert Putnam. Putnam found out that Dr. Hummel came back from China. He wanted to talk to him about his maps, and he wanted to see those maps. So he contacted Dr. Hummel in Boston. Hummel never expected a call from the Library of Congress. He said, I'll come over, I'll show it to you some of my collections. He came over in December 1927. To his surprise, after they talked to each other for about half an hour, he said, Dr. Hummel, would you be interested in work for Library of Congress? Dr. Hummel said, well, I didn't anticipate this kind of question. And he said, how about the map? He said, the map, I like the map. And he said, are you willing to sell the maps? And Dr. Hummel said, I'm not the person selling maps, but if you're interested in map, maybe we can talk about how the map going to donate to Library of Congress. And that was the beginning of their dialogue. And he said, let me go back to Boston and talk to my wife, talking to Mr. Hummel. I cannot be sure because I was retired from my job. I have no interest in getting another job. And he went back to Boston. He thought over and over again, this is a very challenging job, still working on Chinese materials. He said, I've been in China for 20-some years. My children was born in China. I love China. I'm still doing research on China. And he thought about several days. He contacted a librarian, Putnam again. He said, I would accept your offer maybe for 2 years. Let's try it out, see what happens. So he agreed to come back to the Library of Congress. So this time, Dr. Putnam introduced the idea to the U.S. Congress. It must be approved by the Congress. You cannot just set up a new division. So the Congress approved that division was Chinese literature. So it began in 1928, in early 28, Dr. Hummel joined the Library of Congress. So he stayed in the Library of Congress from 1928 until 1954, he retired. He was the one really built up the foundation of a solid, good, comprehensive Chinese collection for the Library of Congress. He really should be commended for his efforts from 25 years. He was a very energetic person. I had the fortune to know him, and we got together from time to time. And the second person after he retired in 1954 was Dr. Edwin G. Beale, Jr. This is at that time was a young man. He was a young man from Ohio. In fact, maybe he was connected with Oberlin College, and he went to Japan, tried to teach English in Japan, but somehow he ended up in Beijing in early 30s, and he taught English at Yanqing University. You know, Yanqing University was an American missionary established university, a very famous university in China. American ambassador to China, John Layton Stewart, was the president of the university. And that university educated a number of Chinese young people, men and women, and finished college, and they continued their graduate study in the United States. So Edwin G. Beale taught English at Yanqing University for a couple of years. He was fascinated by the Chinese history and culture. He decided to change his study from Japan to China. He came back and he finished his PhD at Columbia University. He joined the library in the 1940s and as a bibliographer, and he worked his way up. By the time Dr. Hummel retired, Dr. Beale succeeded section head, Chinese section head, from 1955 until he was promoted to assistant chief of Oriental Division, later on Asian Division. In 1967, he became the assistant chief of Oriental Division. And in that year, the first Chinese American become the head of the Chinese section was Dr. K.T. Wu, a famous China scholar. He graduated from a university in Nanjing. He came to the United States to study at University of Michigan, major in library science. He got a degree, and then he continued his study at University of Chicago. He was the first Chinese American ever received a PhD degree in library science from Chicago. That was Dr. K.T. Wu. And he joined the library in 1938. And he worked as assistant to Dr. Hummel. These two persons worked together like a perfect team. And Dr. Wu helped him to select Chinese books, classical and modern literature.